What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So, set championships are officially kicking off today. Good luck to everyone who is at one. And we have another deck to go ahead and talk about before we start to get all the information on which decks are winning and topping these events. I'll have it all broken down again. The spreadsheet linked down below will have a separate tab for all of the Ursula Return Set Championship information that we can compile once it is there. But like I said, we have another deck to talk about, and despite Specky winning the little set championship that they had for content creators, I believe it was 16 people, he went 4-0. Then he beat Alphos in top 4 before Lorcana Villain was unable to play out the championship, so he did by default get first place, going 5-0. And I thought someone had said he did not drop a single game playing a AGGRO purple steel build. So I was kind of curious. I'm like, what would my list look like if I went to play AGGRO steel? AGGRO purple steel, that is. And before we get into the full deck list, I just want to throw these couple infographs up on the screen and talk about some of the main matchups and the initial play line that I personally would like to go for. First off is the deck that I think is the best deck in the format, and that is Bucky Discard. So you are, spoiler alert, going to see some of the cards played in this deck in these little images. But anyway, so Bucky Discard, what do I try to do turns 1, 2, and 3? Well, this deck really this matchup, I should say, can really be about advantage and them trying to get your hand gone. So in the early stages here, I actually try to get cards that replace themselves or just deal with my opponent really well. So that means the Magic Broom, the Chernobog's Followers on 1. It means coming back with Magic Broom on 2, who can go ahead and deal with my opponent's Diablo on 3 and survive it to take out another Diablo. Luckily, the Pegasus shift line is seeing less play, which means that 3/3 taking your Broom is less likely to happen. If they do have it, I mean, they have it, but again, you can take out 2 Diablos with this, or take out 1, or force the Strength of the Raging Fire, force interaction on your Magic Broom so you don't take out their Diablo. And then on 3, we have things like Maleficent, Friends on the other side to net you some draws. If you can get to like turn 4 or 5 and get to be able to ink and still have the cards in your hand, then you can start spamming out multiple lower cost characters in the same turn and try to overwhelm the Bucky Discard deck that way. Because trying to just go aggro early, I don't think is a very good strategy versus them, because you run out of a hand and resources before you can truly put them in a spot of being in jeopardy of losing the game. So versus Bucky Discard, I actually forego the aggro and I prioritize more the Amethyst draw in my first 3 turns and pair it up with the Aerial Cleaner Broom on turn 2 to try and mitigate how much advantage that Diablo is going to get from my opponent. So going into then Cisu on ice, which coincidentally, this actually is a very similar playline as Blue Steel. Both of these decks pretty much play items their first. Items are like 1 jump ahead on turn 1 and 2. Turn 3, again, neither deck really plays many characters. Blue Steel does play more, and you're more likely to see an early character. But like Cisu on Ice, the Ruby Sapphire deck, a lot of the time they don't play a character until turn 4. So this is where aggro thrives. If your meta is full of these decks, I absolutely think an aggro deck is a very good call for you. That's what Specky kind of came to his conclusion. Didn't expect a ton of Bucky in that event, and he went aggro, and it worked out wonderfully. And I think it was a great call, and he was very smart for doing what he did. So versus Cisu or Blue Steel, I definitely go aggro here. I want to hit Maleficent on 1. I want to hit Smee on 2. And then if I'm on the play, turn 3, if you can come back with a second Maleficent and Smee, you're in a really good spot, because you're not going to be in grab your swords range yet. You'll be at 6, and then you'll be threatening another 8 more to go to 14. And then your next turn, you can just play something like Hardcast on turn 4, a Friends on the other side, or you can play a Rabbit, or you can play a card that isn't going to die to grab your swords, because then if they come back with grab your swords on their 4th turn, you don't want to just unnecessarily lose another aggro card. Hold it in your hand for the follow-up. Obviously, there are other Steel Songs that could be in play, But their typical line, if they want to hit their ramps and everything, you can be at 14 lore really, really quickly. Advertently or inadvertently, another play line that I do think you should note, on turn 3, if you're on the draw, maybe drop that Benja. I don't necessarily like Benja on 3 on the play, because I'd rather hold it for that Fishbone Quill or Stone Dragon on 3, and then you drop your Benja and you take it out on your 3rd turn. Obviously, they'll get the 1 Quill ramp on their 3rd turn. Can't really do anything about it. It happens sometimes. But on the, I don't want to hit that Popsicle or the Fortisphere if I am on the play. Unless, let's say you don't have Maleficent plus Smee, and they have that Popsicle, or you already saw their hand. Actually, we're not playing any lookers, so that you wouldn't be able to see their hand. But I guess play it how you want. But me personally, I think hitting the Quill is more important, and I'd rather play like Benja on 4. So even on 3, if instead of Maleficent Smee, if you don't have both of them, let's say you only have Maleficent and Benja. If you have it, you could play like Friends on the other side on 3, quest for the 4 from your Maleficent and Smee, and then on turn 4, come back with the Benja plus Maleficent, and just pair up multiple cards that way if it works out for you. Benja being able to hit items on play, having 3 willpower, and questing for 2 is just really helpful for this deck. And then lastly, the last matchup we're going to talk about is the Ruby Amethyst control matchup. So this one has a couple routes. Turn 1, I usually try to go aggro in this matchup a little earlier, and then you can start to play the resource game if needed. If they start to stabilize, then you start coming down with the Brooms and Chernobyls and whatnot. But early on, especially because a lot of them are cutting their 1-drops to 4, if you hit Maleficent on 1 and then Smee on 2, a lot of the time you can get out to a really, really quick start against this deck and try to outpace their blowout cards like the Be Prepareds, and all of those. I'll say don't necessarily overcommit in turns 3 and 4. On between 3 and 4, usually you should be able to put just enough characters down in this matchup to where you're threatening lethal by turn 6. Don't just overcommit everything, because then if they have the Be Prepared, or if they shift Cisu even, it's not common, but it can happen. You don't want to just lose unnecessarily because you got greedy. You can use your 3 or 4 characters to essentially close out the game at that point. You don't need to just keep putting all your characters on the board. If you don't have Smee on 2, though, Madame Mim Fox is actually a really good card on 2 in this matchup, especially if they hit that Flynn Rider. Because their Flynn, if you can get a 3 strength character down, whether Smee, whether Snake, and just prevent them from getting that free 3 lore on their turn, it's really, really good. Using your bouncers in this matchup just to keep your characters ready, because they play Fox, they play Maui, they have these rush characters, so they're going to be coming after them. And double points if turn 3, you can go Snake, or quest Maleficent, Snake, bounce Maleficent, replay Maleficent, just to get her re-readied. So that's a play line you can do, even if you go Maleficent Smee, then turn 3 play Snake after questing, and then replay the Maleficent just to have her exerted. If they want to challenge into the 3 strength Smee, let them go ahead and do it, because their character's also going to get taken out even if it's a Mim Fox. But otherwise, turn 3 also opens up your Mim Fox play lines. If you go Snake on 2, bouncing your Maleficent, and then you draw Smee, you can come back on turn 3 with Maleficent plus Smee. These first 3 turns, I really just put my foot down on the gas and try to either play my aggro cards and my bouncers to just better set myself up for it. But let's go ahead and go over the entire deck list then. So this list does come in at $175 the one we're playing. A really good portion, a third of that, is the Queen's Castles. I think the card is incredible, and if you can play it, absolutely play it. If you can't play it, I get it. You don't necessarily need it, but the deck is going to be better with it. We're also playing just 10 uninkable cards, and nearly all of our cards are in 4 ink. So 4 ink is kind of the peak of your curve. That doesn't mean stop inking at 4. It just means most of your deck is live at that point. Would I stop at 7? I mean, if you still have a hand in this format, maybe, because a lot of your characters are going to be able to get played. And that doesn't necessarily mean just stop, because if you have a goat plus castle in your hand, you might want to be able to play both to just get that lore, threaten a second lore, and be threatening 2 from the castle. So I mean, play it out, accordingly, but you don't have to ink every single turn when you're getting into that 5, 6, 7 ink mark, because your deck costs so little, and you're being an aggro deck that you usually don't need to. So we're playing 10 1-drops, and that is being 4 of the Maleficents for the aggro, and then we have the Followers and the Brooms as just draw cards to help get to your aggro a little bit quicker, and to also help in that Bucky matchup. On turn 2, we have 4 Snakes. Your bouncers are so important in this deck to just keep your advantage up or keep your aggro cards readied. 3 Magic Brooms, again, another Bucky counter, because something that aggro decks usually struggle in this format. They're good into the Ruby and Sapphire decks, but they struggle into the Emerald deck, into the Steel Song deck. And Broom might not help versus the Steel Song matchup, however, it does definitely help into your Bucky matchups. Playing 4 Smee as well. Then we have 4 Madam Mim Foxes, 3 Maleficent Sorceresses, just again more draw power as you get into that mid game. 4 Benjas for the item decks and just to keep the aggro approach going. 4 Goats to close games out. 4 Rabbits to just continually draw cards. And 4 Tinkerbells rounding out our character lineup. Tinkerbell is just incredibly strong right now. Quest for 2 does absolutely everything you want it to and gives you an option to help challenge into your opponent's boards. We do play 4 actions here. We're playing 2 Baboom. It helps with Flynn Rider Frenemy, and it also helps with Diablo. Big 2 threats in the format that Baboom is just great at dealing with. And then Avalanche. So I was debating on Grab Your Swords, but Tinkerbell's the only character that would be able to sing it anyway. So it felt kind of bad either hard casting it on 5 or waiting until 7 to be able to sing it with Tinkerbell. So we went for Avalanche instead, because this card also can take out like a Queen's Castle if you need to play it to remove locations instead, or Pride Lands in the Steel Song matchup. Also, if you're against Tempo or other aggro decks, doing 1 across the board can be very, very strong. And it's a turn 4 answer for Bucky. So if you hit your curve versus Bucky, so we said Chernabog or Broom on 1, and then this Broom on 2, and then Maleficent on 3, and then if you come back with like Avalanche on 4, you're probably sitting in a pretty good spot, because now you just got rid of their Bucky, right? So you're going to be able to keep your hand, and if you can even, you could possibly sing Friends with your Maleficent at that point. Strength of the Raging Fire, otherwise if you need to finish off a Diablo, if it's not exerted and you can't take it out with your Broom yet, you have different options here that you could sing with your Maleficent on 4 and also be able to take advantage of the Avalanche, getting rid of that Bucky from your opponent. And then lastly, we have 4 Queen's Castles. I really, really like this deck, though. I think it's a great call. If you're wanting to play an aggro deck, I think there's a few things to think about. Like Amber Amethyst, you have access to some great bodyguards and cards like Piglet, who can quest for 3 and is inkable. Again, the bodyguard Donald Duck, who can give a lore to a character. Baloo gets you extra lore. Like, you have really good aggro cards in that pairing with your draw and your other aggro Amethyst cards. Amethyst Emerald also having Ursula for songs, having Curse Merfolk and Flynn to make your opponent either remove them with effect or they have to discard to deal with them. And again, your Amethyst engine doing the same thing. That's another really viable aggro strategy. And then this one takes advantage of the high strength of Smee and Broom being able to deal with your opponent, as well as having things like Strength of the Raging Fire, Baboom, Avalanche to just use as counters again for the meta. So I think those 3 decks are really, really good aggro choices. If you're interested in any of them, I did do a hyper aggro deck profile not too long ago, and maybe we'll get around to another Amethyst Emerald one, but here is our Amethyst Steel aggro deck. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck at your set championships. Let me know how it goes. Let me know what deck you plan on playing or that you did well with if you want to. Down below. Comment. That's how you do it. Like, share, subscribe. We're getting really, really close to our Set 5 case giveaway at 4,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for all of that. And until next time, take care.